Have you ever felt from a very young age that you were somehow different? Not necessarily better or worse, just different. A sense that you carry a burden, a longing, or a calling that others around you don't seem to understand. A sense that you see the world through a different lens, that you feel things with a depth that sometimes feels more like a curse than a blessing. If you know that feeling of being a stranger in familiar lands, this message is for your soul. For this feeling of being different often leads us to deep pain, the pain of looking at our difficulties and believing that they are proof of our strangeness, our defect. We look at the struggles in our family, the losses that seem to hit us the hardest, and the question, why me, becomes even more personal. Why do I have to feel everything so intensely? Why does my journey seem so much more complicated? And we confuse what can be a destiny of punishment. And here, Carl Jung's philosophy offers us a new and revolutionary way of understanding this difference. The day you were chosen is not a date, and it is an archetypal moment of recognition. It is the instant when you, perhaps for the first time, look at your weirdness and challenges, and instead of seeing them as an accident, consider the radical possibility that they are, in fact, a design. A meticulous design by the wisest part of you, yourself, to forge you into something unique. This choice, therefore, is your vocatio, your calling. And the calling is not for you to become someone. The calling is for you to become fully yourself. Your mission in this life is not to learn to fit in. It is to have the courage to understand and embody your difference, for it is there that your gift to the world lies. Imagine that before they are born, most souls are given grass seed. They are destined to grow a beautiful, uniform lawn, but your soul, for some reason, was given an oak seed, and for the first half of your life, you tried desperately to be grass. But your roots were too deep, your first branches too crooked and clumsy, and you felt wrong. The day you were chosen is the day you stop apologizing for not being grass and accept the daunting, lonely, and utterly magnificent task of becoming the oak tree you were born to be. The promise of our profound 40-minute journey is not to tell you what your mission is. It is to give you the tools to decipher your oak tree contract. We will learn to look at your past and your present, to identify the sacred moments when your soul chose you, called you out of the norm, so that you can understand the map of your destiny and finally embrace the beauty of your own unique. The first step to understanding your calling is to confront the pain of powerlessness. It is the feeling of being a pawn in a chess game you do not understand. It is feeling driven by invisible forces, a victim of circumstances, reacting to life's events without a true sense of agency or purpose. It is the pain of believing that you have no choice, and that your life is merely a consequence of events that are far beyond your control. To free us from this feeling, Jung's psychology offers us a fundamental distinction, the difference between the self and the ego. Your ego is the center of your consciousness, the I, with which you identify in your day-to-day life. Think of it as the manager or butler of your inner castle. The self, on the other hand, is the true king. It is the ordering center of your entire psyche, your wholeness, your wise and timeless soul. And in the dynamics of life, it is the self, the king, who chooses the path of the soul. And the ego, the steward, is the reluctant hero who is summoned often at his will to walk that. And here is the revelation that explains why your life has been so challenging. The choice of the self, the path it charts for your soul, rarely coincides with the desires of your ego. Your ego desires comfort, security, pleasure, social approval, and a life without conflict. Your self, however, has a single relentless guideline, your individuation, the maximum expansion of your consciousness. And for this expansion to happen, the self does not choose the path of ease. It chooses the path that involves difficulty, challenges, and confrontation with its shadow, for it knows that it is only in the fire of challenge that the true gold of consciousness is forged. In order for you to see this dynamic in your own life, I invite you to take a double inventory. Grab a notebook. On the left, list everything your ego most desires for your life. Perhaps it's financial security, a stable relation, professional recognition, a peaceful. Now, on the right side, look at the real challenges your life presented and list the qualities challenges are forcing you to develop. Perhaps it is resilience, compassion, courage, faith, detachment. And then contemplate the profound difference between your ego's plan and your self's learning curriculum. Think of your ego as a hobbit whose greatest desire is a peaceful, comfortable, and predictable life in his little shire. And think of yourself as the wizard Gandalf, who one unexpected day knocks on your door and chooses you for a dangerous and frightening adventure. Gandalf does not do this out of cruelty. He does it because he, with his broader vision, can see the hero that exists hidden within the hobbit, a hero who would never awaken, who would never know his own strength and courage if it weren't for the call to a road full of dragons, dangers, and unexpected treasures. The first and most unmistakable sign that your soul has chosen you for a greater journey is, paradoxically, one of the most painful events in your life. It is the day of your sacred crisis, and the pain that accompanies it is that of trauma. It is the tendency to look back at a devastating event from your past, perhaps the loss of a great love, the diagnosis of an illness, a humiliating professional failure, a betrayal, and see it as the end of happiness, the scar that defines you negatively forever. It's the day your real life and a lesser life, a life of survival. What Jung's depth psychology and the wisdom of myth teach us is that this moment of greatest crisis is often the clearest of all the days of choice. It is the initiatio, the initiation of the hero. It is the moment when your old life, your limited identity, your comfort zone is violently destroyed so that a new, broader, more authentic life can have space to be born from. It is your soul saying unequivocally, that old path no longer serves. From this day forward, your journey is different. And here is the break in expectation that can transform your greatest wound into your greatest honor. That day was not your end. It was your calling. Your wound, your specific pain, chose you so that you could become an expert in it, so that by dedicating yourself to your own deep healing, you could become a guide, a beacon, a source of compassion and wisdom for all other souls who are navigating the same darkness. The day of your greatest apparent weakness was actually the day your greatest power was conceived, so that you can begin to extract the gold from your wound. The invitation is for a hidden force analysis. Think about your greatest crisis, your greatest trauma, and for a moment, instead of focusing on pain, loss, ask yourself with the honesty of an alchemist, what are the 3 strengths or wisdoms that I possess today that would be absolutely impossible for me to have had I not gone through a particular event? Maybe it's your compassion, your resilience, your faith, your courage, your ability to appreciate the little things. Recognize that these qualities are your badge of honor. Think of yourself before the crisis as a piece of common metal, useful but without a great purpose. And the day of your crisis was the day that life, the great cosmic blacksmith, looked at you and decided that you were no longer common metal. She decided that you had the potential to become a legendary blade, and so she took you and threw you into the fiercest fire of suffering and struck you with the hardest hammers of loss. And this whole painful process, which seemed like a punishment, was, in fact, the sacred process of its forging. It was life transforming it into a sword of power, beauty, and purpose. The second sign that your soul has chosen you for a greater journey is often more subtle than a crisis, but no less earth-shattering. It is the day of the cosmic whisper, and the pain that accompanies it is that of disbelief. It is the tendency of our modern, logical mind to dismiss strange coincidences, vivid dreams, and unexpected encounters as mere flukes, as a random product of the brain. It is the fear of appearing foolish or too mystic we dare to admit even to ourselves that an event, however illogical it seem, was significant. What Jung's psychology teaches is that the day of choosing may not be a day of external crisis, but a day of immense synchronicity. As we have seen, this is an event where your inner world and the outer world align in a way that defies logic, but is charged with deep and personal meaning. Sometimes this call comes not from outside, but from within, through what Jung called big dreams. These are archetypal dreams that feel more real than reality itself, and that leave us with a sense of having received a message from a source much greater than ourselves. And the revelation that frees you from your own disbelief is this: these events are not random. They are phone calls from yourself. They are the way the universe, or your soul, has of intervening in the limited script of your ego and telling you unequivocally, pay attention, look here, change course. There is something of immense value to you here. Ignoring these synchronicities, dismissing these big dreams as unimportant, is the equivalent of refusing the call of the magician knocking at your door. It is the act of saying no to your own adventure. In order to recognize these calls in your own life, we invite you to practice memory, your synchronicity journal. Go back in your mind to your history. Remember one or two coincidences or a dream that gave you goosebumps and that you have never forgotten. Maybe it was meeting an unlikely person in a faraway place. Maybe it was a book that gave you the exact answer you needed. What was your life situation? What question were you asking the universe? And looking back now, with the wisdom you have today, what was the message that event brought you? Think of your life, when directed only by the ego, as a play with a very well-defined and predictable script. You are the main actor, and you know all your lines. And synchronicity, the day of the cosmic whisper, is the moment when, in the middle of a scene, an actor who was not in the script comes on stage. He comes from the middle of the audience, hands you a mysterious object that is not part of the set, whispers an enigmatic word in your ear, and leaves. And this single unexpected event breaks the fourth wall. It destroys the illusion that it was just and changes forever the entire plot. The third sign that your soul has chosen you for a greater journey may be the most difficult of all to let go of. It is when the call comes in the form of another, and the pain that accompanies it is that of obsession or resentment. It is the pain of being trapped mentally and emotionally in the memory of a person from your, be it a great love who turned you upside down, a mentor who disappointed you, or even an enemy who caused you a deep wound. It is the feeling that your life is paralyzed because of the influence that this person still exerts. What Jungian psychology teaches us is that sometimes the call to adventure, the vocatio, does not come as an impersonal crisis or as a synchronicity. It comes through another human being who serves a catalyst for your soul. This person becomes the perfect hook for a massive projection, either of your anima or animus, your idealized soul image, or of your shadow, your deepest wound. And here is the break in expectation that can finally set you free. This person was not your destiny. They were the midwife of your destiny. Your soul, on a level that your consciousness does not understand, hired this person to deliver an absolutely crucial lesson to you, a lesson that perhaps you could not learn in any other way. And the day you met this person, the day that you perhaps curse or idolize, was, for your soul, a deliberate day of choice. It was the beginning of one of the most important and most difficult tasks in your life's curriculum. To begin to change your perspective on this person, the invitation is to investigate. Think about them now. And for a moment, try to put aside the love story or the story of pain that your mind tells you. Instead, ask yourself with the honesty of an alchemist, what fundamental transformation did this connection, with all its joy and pain, force me to make in myself? What part of me was born or forced to mature because of it? Think of some people who come into our lives like a matchstick. They don't come to become the bonfire that will warm us for the rest of our lives. They have a single quick purpose: to scratch the sandpaper of our complacency, our comfort zone, and light the fire of our own transformation. The encounter was the ignition, brief, intense, perhaps painful, but absolutely necessary so that our own flame could finally begin to burn on its own. The fourth sign that your soul has chosen you is perhaps the most confusing of all, and the pain that accompanies it is that of existential guilt. It is the feeling of having a life that, to everyone else, seems good, stable, and successful, but deep down, feeling a deep, inexplicable, and growing dissatisfaction. It is looking at your achievements, your career, your relationship, and feeling an emptiness of meaning, and then feeling guilty and ungrateful for not being able to be happy with what you fought so hard to build. To understand this dissatisfaction, we need to rescue a concept from Greek philosophy, telos. Telos is the inherent purpose, the end for which a thing was made, its ultimate potential. The telos of an apple seed is to become an apple tree that bears fruit. Your soul, in the same way, has a telos. She has an inherent and uncontrollable drive to become her most complete and authentic self, to become the tree she was meant to be. And the counterintuitive revelation here is this: that day you looked at all your confections and felt a deep emptiness was not a sign of ingratitude or that there was something wrong with you. It was the day your self chose you. It was the day your soul declared unequivocally that the life of your persona, the life you had built to be accepted and to feel safe, was no longer in. Your dissatisfaction is the voice of your telos, the voice of your unlived purpose, calling you to a greater life. To begin to decipher the message behind your dissatisfaction, the invitation is to inquire into dissatisfaction. Instead of fighting the feeling or feeling guilty about it, allow yourself to feel it. Sit with it as if it were a wise messenger, and ask yourself, what do you really long for? What is missing from? If I could have anything, not in terms of having, but in terms of being, what would it be? Use your dissatisfaction as a compass that points not to what is wrong, but to what is missing and needs to be born. Think of yourself as a seed of a huge, majestic oak tree that was planted by mistake in a small, delicate bonsai. For a time, you may have even grown there. You became a beautiful, small, controlled tree, admired by everyone who passed by. But one day, the oak's impulse within you, your telos, your life force, began to feel stifled, and your dissatisfaction, feeling of emptiness, is nothing more than the sound of your oak, now too strong, beginning to break the small bonsai pot of life that has become too small for your soul. After receiving a call from your soul, whether through a crisis, a synchronicity, or a deep dissatisfaction, you may feel a surge of clarity and inspiration. You decide to change. You feel ready for the adventure. But then, a few days or weeks later, the pain of self-sabotage sets in. It's the frustrating pattern of inexplicably slipping back into old habits, old ways of thinking, old comfort zone. And it leaves you feeling weak, betrayed, and with the painful belief that you don't have what it takes to sustain real change. What's happening here is the most predictable and natural response of all: ego resistance. Remember, your ego is the manager of your conscious life, and its prime directive is to maintain your identity, your security, and your sense of control. The call of the self, with all its beauty and power, is almost always perceived by the ego as a deadly threat. It is a call to the unknown, to the uncontrollable, to a journey that will inevitably dismantle the identity that the ego has worked so hard to build. And the ego's first reaction to this choice, the soul, will be fear and resistance. And the break in expectation that can save you from giving up on your journey is this: your self-sabotage after a call from the soul is not a sign of weakness. It is the predictable and normal reaction of your ego trying to protect you from the unknown. Do not be surprised by it. Do not identify with it. Learning to expect this resistance, to observe it without merging with, is a sign of immense psychological mastery. It is the act of the hero listening to the fears of his squire without ever letting the fears of the squire dictate the course of the journey. To prepare for this rebellion, you are invited to resistance mapping. After you have had a moment of great clarity or made an important decision to change your life, grab a notebook and, with the cleverness of a general anticipating the enemy's moves, write down all the excuses, all the fears, and all the logical reasons that you know your ego will use in the coming days to try to sabotage your new journey. Be prepared to receive them. By naming them before they appear, you take away their power to catch you by surprise. Think of your ego as the manager of a factory that has operated exactly the same way for 20 years. The factory is safe, predictable, and makes a modest profit. And think of yourself as a brilliant new engineer who arrives with a revolutionary plan to remodel the entire factory, a plan that promises infinitely richer and more meaningful output. What do you think the old, cautious manager's first reaction will be? He will say, "This is too risky. This won't work. We've never done it this way. We'd better stick with the method we know, and that keeps us safe." Your job is, as the factory owner, to listen to your manager's concerns, but still have the courage to approve the engineer's plan. After accepting the call, surviving the crisis, deciphering the synchronicities, and navigating the rebellion of your own ego, a new and deeper pain can emerge. It is the pain of uncertainty. It is the question that the hero asks in the middle of his journey. Okay, I am on this road, but for what is the ultimate meaning of all this struggle, all this pain, and all this transformation? What Jung's philosophy is that the purpose of your the nature of your mission is not primarily to be famous, rich, or happy in the conventional sense that our culture defines it. Your primary mission at work is your own individuation. It is the process of becoming a whole, conscious, and authentic human being. But, and this is a crucial point, this is not an act of selfishness. Your personal wholeness is, in fact, your greatest potent service to the world. And the revelation that frees your journey from any ego ambition is this: you have been chosen a sacred and often silent and invisible, the task of raising consciousness. Each individual who has the courage to the work of differentiating themselves from the mass thinking, of integrating their own shadow, of healing their own wound, and of aligning with the truth of their self, adds a small but absolutely vital light to the collective consciousness of humanity. Your personal healing is a healing for the whole. So that you can begin to live this mission in your daily life, I invite you to practice the mission of the day. Every morning, ask yourself, how can I just today, in one small interaction, act from my authentic center rather than reacting from my wounded persona? How can I bring a little more awareness, patience, or compassion to my little world, to my family, to my work? Your grand purpose is not in the distant, it is in the quality of your conscious moment. Think of humanity as a large body, and most of its cells are operating on autopilot, following old. Being chosen by your soul is the act of being a cell that decides, for some reason, to awaken. At first, the awakening of the single cell does not seem to change anything in the entire body. But as it awakens, it begins to vibrate at a new frequency, and it sends out a new biochemical signal, a signal of health and coherence that makes it a little easier for the neighboring cells in contact with it to awaken as well. Your personal journey is an act of planetary service. After you glimpse the nobility of your mission, after feeling your soul's call to a greater journey, you are faced with the greatest challenge of all: everyday life. It is the pain of returning to the routine, to the challenges of work, to the bills to pay, to the monotony of everyday life. And it is at this moment that the magical feeling of the calling can begin to fade, and the fear that everything was nothing more than an illusion, that you are, after all, just another ordinary person struggling to survive, can return. With what allows us to maintain the connection or purpose in the midst of mundane is the strengthening ego self. Living as chosen one is not a permanent ecstasy. It is the daily practice of maintaining a stable and fluid connection between your ego, your I that acts in the world, and yourself, your center of wisdom that knows the greater plan. Life ceases to be a struggle of the ego against circumstances and becomes a partnership, a dance of co-creation between your human self and your divine self. And the breaking of expectations here is fundamental. Your life does not necessarily become easier or free of problems. The big change is that your problems change meaning. They stop being seen as random punishments or as proof of your inadequacy and start being seen as part of your curriculum, as the interesting challenges your soul chose for your master. You stop asking from the place of the victim, why is this happening to me? And you start asking from the place of the co-creator, what is this trying to reveal to me? What is this situation teaching? To strengthen this new perspective every day, the invitation is for a reaffirmation of the mission. Every morning, for one precious minute before you begin your day, close your eyes. Remind yourself of your soul's perspective. Remind yourself that your life is not an accident, but a purposeful journey. Then say to yourself with a calm and powerful intention, I accept today. This simple act changes the quality of everything that follows. You no longer enter your day as a slave to routine, but as a missionary for your own soul. Consider that before, you were like an actor who was given only his lines for each day. Without ever having read the entire script of the play, you felt confused, lost, without understanding the purpose of the difficult scenes or the arc of a character. Now, when you connect with yourself, it is as if you, the lead actor, have been given the privilege of reading the entire script. You still have to go on stage and act in the difficult scenes, the scenes of pain and conflict, but now you act them out with a new wisdom, for you know the purpose of each of them within the grand, beautiful, and meaningful story of your journey. After this entire journey of redefining, of looking at your path and finding purpose and callings, one last pain, one last melancholy may arise. It is the belief that the magic calling, the day of choosing, was a unique event that happened in the past. Now you are alone to deal with the consequences and to walk on a road that no longer has the same divine intervention. What Jung's psychology and the wisdom of the traditions teach us is that the journey of the soul, the process of individuation, is not a straight line, where we go from one phase to another and never look back. The journey of the soul is a spiral. We constantly return to the same theme, the same wounds, and the same challenges, but with each turn, we are at a higher level of consciousness with more tools and more. And the call of the self is not a single event. It is an ongoing process. It is a constant invitation for the next turn of the spiral. And the final revelation, the one that brings all our work into the present moment, is this: the day of choice can be today. The signs of a new calling are exactly the same. It is a deep dissatisfaction of current status quo, even if it was your dream yesterday. It is a synchronicity that shakes your certainty. It is a dream that haunts you with a new image, a new longing. It is a new crisis that disorients your ego, or a new passion that consumes your soul. Your soul is always calling you to the next level of your journey of becoming yourself. In order for you to hear the calling that is happening now, the invitation is for a calling check-in. Stop and ask yourself with total honesty, what in my life right now is alive? What is pulsing? What is crying out for my attention? What is feeling unbearably stagnant? Or, conversely, irresistibly attractive? Your energy, your libido, is already showing you the direction. This is where your soul is knocking on the door of your present. Think of yourself not as a king who gives a single order and then retreats to his castle. Think of him as a patient and eternally present gardener, and your life is his garden, and every day he walks through his garden observing. Today, he may decide it is time to prune a dead branch that no longer bears fruit. Tomorrow, he may decide that a new part of the garden needs watering. The day after tomorrow, he may show you a new seed he wants to plant. He is always present, always working, always inviting you to participate with him in the next stage of the growth of your own garden. We journey together today from the feeling of being a victim of cruel chance to the profound and empowering realization that we are the chosen protagonist of a meaningful and purposeful soul journey. And the central truth that I hope will illuminate your life is that the day you were chosen is not a memory to be revered in the past, but a perspective to be lived in each present moment. It is the conscious decision to see your life, with all its pain and beauty, as an intentional saga orchestrated by the wisest part of you. For as Jung taught us, I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. And on an even deeper level, we can now understand the soul has already chosen what you need to become in order to be whole, you in your entirety. You were not forgotten. You are not an accident. Every scar you bear, every detour you have taken, and every joy you have felt are steps. The question was never whether you were chosen. Your entire life is proof of. The question today, in this very moment, is, now that you hear the call, now that you understand the nature of your mission, will you have the courage to answer?